Hi everyone, John Heath here again for MiltonRose Learning with another Let's Learn video on a streetcar named Desire today. So we're going all Southern Gothic on you. So we're going to go through some of the basics together, just give you an initial kind of feel for the play and some of the key plot events. Then we will move on to some of the key context and learn some of the history going on at the time when this play was produced. And then we will finish by looking at some of the key characters, and some of them are quite weird and wonderful in some ways. So we'll have a little look at those as well. Okay, so first off then, let's have a look at some of the basics. Okay, so in terms of genre then, this is very much a Southern Gothic play, which is a good term to use in your essays. It blends psychological drama, tragedy with social realism, kind of reporting on social issues at the time. And Tennessee Williams, the writer, blends poetic dialogue and realism to explore themes of desire, class conflict and the decline of traditional values in post-war America. So it's very thematically rich. There's a lot going on here, that's for sure. Now if we look at some of the key plot events then. So we have the main character, really, main protagonist, Blanche DuBois. So she arrives in New Orleans to stay with her sister, Stella, and she ends up confronting Stella's very aggressive husband, Stanley. And that triggers kind of tragic events from there. So Blanche starts to hide her troubled past behind a very elegant facade. But Stanley, because of their kind of animosity now, starts to investigate and starts to pick apart her secrets and expose them. Then moving forward, as the plot kind of continues, Blanche and Stanley's power struggle intensifies. That's the key kind of narrative heart of this play, really, that struggle between Blanche and Stanley, and it leads to psychological trauma and a lot of tension within that kind of family unit. And Blanche's retreat into fantasy collapses then under Stanley's cruelty, unrelenting cruelty I should say, ending with her mental breakdown and institutionalization. So it's, like I say, it's kind of quite a gritty play in that sense. It blends poetic dialogue in there to kind of soften it stylistically, but it does explore quite kind of quite gritty kind of themes in that sense. Now if we look at some of the key context then, first off then, let's look at post-war America. So it's set in the aftermath of World War II, which obviously ended in 1945. So the play reflects the social and cultural shifts of the late 40s. Okay, America was going through a lot of social and economic change in this era, and the world was changing. So especially the rise of urban industrialization, so a lot of people were moving from the country into the urban kind of cities, and the decline of old southern values in the southern states of America, which were starting to kind of be eroded through that. And I think Tennessee Williams wants to explore the effects of their erosion through mainly the character of Blanche DuBois. Okay, next one we've got class conflicts even. So Williams explores tensions between the aristocratic past of who's symbolised by Blanche and the working class present who's symbolised by Stanley. So that reveals deep divisions within American society and the ultimate erosion of traditional social hierarchies which America had had for so long. Okay, then finally, in terms of context, we have mental health and trauma. Okay, so Blanche's psychological decline reflects the growing awareness of mental illness in this period. It actually became a thing, dare I say, whereas previously it was kind of not really well studied or understood. And the lasting effects of psychological trauma were beginning to be kind of teased out and studied, especially in a society that often offered kind of very little support for emotional vulnerability. So within this era we have the kind of the beginning of consciousness of mental health and mental illness and how they can be treated. And again, Tennessee Williams masterfully explores that through the character of Blanche DuBois. Okay then, now if we look at some of the key characters. Okay, so as we were talking about before, Blanche DuBois is the kind of star of the show. So she is a fragile, once quite wealthy southern belle, kind of very beautiful kind of southern lady, but she clings to illusions of refinement and romance. She therefore represents the decline of the Old South and the struggle to survive in a harsh modern world. And symbolises vulnerability, denial, and the tragic consequences of escaping reality. She cannot escape this changing world, and it ultimately leads to her kind of mental illness and decline because of that. Then we have Stanley Kowalski. Yeah, kind of very interesting character in some ways. So he's a working class male character, very proud, very aggressive, and emotionally volatile. Okay. Represents the rise of modern industrial masculinity and brute power. What a modern interpretation might kind of chime in with kind of notions of toxic masculinity, potentially, is a phrase which might be used with Stanley Kowalski. He symbolises kind of patriarchal male dominance and the destructive force of social change. However, it's really important to know that the best students will always kind of look at characters from other perspectives, and a more sympathetic view of Stanley Kowalski might be the fact that he's a Polish immigrant into an alien culture, and he's trying to get his head around it, and he's trying to deal with all forms of kind of ethnic discrimination and things like that. So he's not all bad. I think it's very important to be nuanced towards Stanley. Okay, next one we have Stella Kowalski then. So Blanche's younger sister, and she is emotionally torn between her past and her present life with Stanley. So she represents the compromise effectively between old world gentility and new world realism, because the world was changing in the post-war era, as we know. So symbolises the conflict between desire and duty, love and loyalty. She's kind of torn in many ways within this play, and the best essays will always kind of tease apart those kind of the elements, the ways in which she's torn, and the mental effects upon her. Then we have Mitch, or Harold Mitchell. So Stanley's friend and Blanche's brief love interest. He's kind, but he's very emotionally limited. He doesn't have much emotional intelligence, we might say in a modern reading. He represents the potential for tenderness in a harsh world, but also the limitations, because he can never be enough for Blanche. Symbolises lost chances for salvation, because Blanche and him may have been may have ended up happy, and the fear of social judgment. Okay. Then Eunice Hubble, so Stella's upstairs neighbour and landlady, part of the working class New Orleans. So she represents resilience and the everyday reality of volatile relationships. She symbolises, moreover, how domestic abuse is normalised within this culture and tolerated within the community. So obviously times have moved on massively now, so modern feminist interpretation would really tease out the negativity around that character. And then we have Steve Hubble. So Eunice's loud poker playing husband. He loves a card game, and he mirrors Stanley's aggressive masculinity. He also, on a broader social level, represents the rough working class male culture within the quarter of New Orleans where they live, and symbolises the kind of almost endless cycle of patriarchal violence and dominance that pervades domestic life within this kind of play for most of it. Okay then, right then, so just in terms of a final little summary, that's been hopefully a nice beginner's guide to A Streetcar Named Desire. So just giving you some of the key plot events at the start, helping you to tease out and just understand some of the key areas of context within the play, and then just starting to get to know some of the characters, and we'll obviously tease those out in more detail in our next videos. So it just remains to say, obviously, if you found this video hopefully quite useful, please hit the like, subscribe and the bell icon. It always helps us to grow and gives us the motivation to make even more videos. So hopefully that's been a really good kind of just introduction to what is a really thematically dense play, and we'll look forward to exploring that in future videos. So thank you for watching and take care.